Pronunciation Pro.
Pronunciation Pro.
Here's another thing I forgot to mention, but it was very, very important, especially when it comes to all of you as English language learners. I felt like this would be really helpful for you to understand. He talks about the importance of powerless communication, which sounds kind of contradictory, but he was saying that using powerless communication really helps when you're navigating takers and matchers and things like that. And powerless communication is basically expressing vulnerability, which puts the other person in more of a power position. Okay, so let me kind of explain this more because it's really interesting. So he talks about prestige versus dominance, and he gave this example of how this researcher, and I forget the topic he was talking about, but he had some, well, it was Adam Grant, and so he's talking about this give and take mentality, and he was addressing Army commanders, okay, in the U.S. Army. So these commanders who are some of them twice his age, okay, because he was relatively young when he was, doing this research. He's still very young, but he was talking about how he went to go give this presentation to this group of Army commanders. And the first time he did the presentation, he was like, okay, I got to show them that I know what I'm talking about. I need to show them that I have all this experience and knowledge and that I'm an expert here. Okay. So he went out on stage and he listed his credentials and he was like, hey, you should listen to me. I know what I'm talking about. Okay. That was more of a dominance mentality. He was going in with this dominant communication style. Okay. And then he was like, that didn't go well. They were not happy with, they just didn't respect him. They didn't have a lot of good feedback for him. And then he went in, he's like, okay, that didn't go well. I'm going to go back to my normal natural style, which is more this powerless communication, where I'm going to be a little bit self-deprecating and I'm going to just be more like humble in my approach. And so he went out there and his opening line was, I know what you're all thinking. What could I possibly learn from someone who's 12 years old? Okay. And he kind of paused, kind of hoping that would work. And then the audience just started laughing. They all thought that was really funny. And then he went on to give the same presentation that he had done before. But what that introduction did for him is it put him in this powerless position where he didn't go in and be like, hey, you should all listen to me because I have important things to say. It's more giving the power back over to the other person to say, hey, you're the dominant character here. I may not have something great to offer, but I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to try, basically. And it puts the audience in a kind of a position of oh yeah, I am important. I have something on this person. And it creates more of what they call prestige, where it's that respect that is established through that. Really an interesting dynamic to navigate, but I've heard it a lot from students. Some of my students, as I've been teaching here at Pronunciation Pro, it's when they introduce themselves saying something to the effect of, hey, English isn't my first language. I'm probably going to mess up a lot here in this presentation, but thanks for working with me. It kind of puts people in more of a giver mentality. It puts people in more of this receptive position instead of, I'm going to get up there and I'm going to, act like I know everything and I have everything put together. People are a little off put by that. But when you come in with more of that powerless communication, you set up more of a stage for prestige, where it's this long-term respect. Okay.
Yeah, and I also think that if you show vulnerability, it makes you more relatable as well. That's why people can relate to you better. And
yeah. Yeah, and it's such an interesting concept because really putting yourself out there and being vulnerable and being kind of open and honest about who you are and how you're feeling about stuff can be a tough thing. It takes a lot of courage. But
Yeah.
the research is showing over and over again how much an advantage that is for people. When they show that vulnerability, how much more receptive people are to them. Okay. So a little bit more on that. So express vulnerability, ask questions. So sincerely try to understand the other person's perspective. It helps you build knowledge and gain insight into that other person. So these are kind of how powerless communication work. So asking questions and really getting into so they were talking about a lot of salespeople who have the most success are those givers who really just want to help the other person. So they're asking a lot of questions to understand what their customer really needs so that they can give them what they need. Not just give them what I want you to have, but let's make sure that we are giving you what you truly, truly need. And the only way to know that is to ask questions. Okay. Okay, hold on. Sorry, I have the chat box in the way. Let me do this again. Okay, are you all seeing the slides again? Okay. Yep. So the other one is persuading. And so this is an interesting one because persuading, they have like tentative talk, hesitations, disclaimers, tag questions. It's kind of like this timid, almost a timid response, kind of like, I don't know if this is going to be helpful, kind of talking in, communicating like, I don't know if this is going to be helpful or not, or I don't know if I'm overstepping my boundaries here, but I have an idea for you. Kind of like
being vulnerable.
You're vulnerable. Instead of coming in like, hey, I've got an idea that you're going to love and you should listen to me. It's more of a vulnerable, like, if you think this is a good idea, then, if it's okay for me to express this idea, I'd love to share something with you. It naturally puts that other person in more of a receptive giver stance. Rastu's saying influence talks a lot about persuading others to your point of view. And it's really kind of that, like, it's interesting to think that kind of hesitations. And I was thinking about all of you so much through this because I was thinking that a lot of you kind of have this mentality of like, I have to have my English perfect. I have to have things, I have to really be so eloquent and perfect in my English for people to respect me. And it's like, the research is saying the opposite. It's saying that, you know what, the more vulnerable you are and the more you're willing to speak up, even though it's not perfect, the more people are going to recognize, oh, hey, that's pretty awesome. They're trying to, they're communicating in my language. Not always, I understand, not always, not everybody, but for the most part, it's more of like when we take that powerless stance in our communication, other people tend to respond better. Does anybody have any experience with this or insight?
Yeah, Annie, I use those 3 tips, concepts every day because I'm working in a wine distribution company, okay? And I'm starting just right now. I've started a few months ago, so I'm completely new in this industry. And every time I meet someone, I tell them like, I'm sorry for my I don't know, because I'm studying wine just at that moment, so a lot of concepts, they are new for me. I can do a lot of mistakes. So first of all, I tell to my listener, like, just wait. If I do mistakes, don't worry. And it's exactly what you are saying, that express vulnerability. It put me in a power position, so my listener is open to listen me, and then ask questions. It's very, very important, especially in like trade situation, commerce situation, because you have to understand which is the strong point of your client, okay? And when you can then you can work with him. And Persuading.
Persuading. Yeah. Persuading.
Exactly.
Yep.
It's something that helped me to practice my knowledge and to make great sales.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Yeah, great examples of that. That's exactly right. It just like, yeah. And the more I thought about this, because again, awareness, that's what I love about reading books, is it just brings your awareness to concepts that you're like, oh yeah, I recognize these things happening. And I didn't realize what was going on, but now I kind of have more perspective here that helps me understand and use it more proactively in my life. So now, as you're going into those wine situations, you're thinking, okay, ask, I'm using this tool of asking more questions and listening and gaining knowledge. And I'm going to use a little bit more of this hedging. Like, I'm not, I'm still learning here. You're going to probably know better than I do, put them in that power position.
Exactly.
And they are, once they're in that power position, they're way more likely to help you. Okay. They're way more in that position of like, oh yeah, I'm here to help. People love that.
Yeah, I think that relates to the point. Sorry.
Go ahead, Ken.
I think that relates to the point made in the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, where one of the things that people like is to feel important. So the fact that you're putting a person in a power position, you expressing your vulnerability, you make the person feel important.
Yeah,
that's why they want to help you.
So interesting, because Marta asks, it may look that a person with a lack of confidence. So it may look like they have a lack of confidence. What would you guys say to that? Do you think it's kind of coming out like that would be like, oh, I'm not very confident? Or
I think that you're expressing your vulnerability, but at the same time you're showing courage. The fact that you are vulnerable, but you still take the step to ask the person. So it's that kind of effect that it creates to people, towards people. So
I think that's powerless is kind of I'm not sure of that usage.
The title, yeah, really maybe needs to say something. I think it is powerful.
Exactly. Yeah. To be vulnerable and just say, hey, I don't know, and can you please give me some feedback, what I should teach or how I can change my talk or program, is coming from a very powerful, self-confident position, I thought.
Yes. I love how you say self-confident position, because when you're self-confident, you're like, okay, I know that I can learn new things, I can do hard things, and I can step into uncomfortable emotions for the sake of growth. Okay. That's something we talk about in the Confident Pro Mindset course, is that's what self-confidence is. So when you're willing to go into a situation, a speaking situation, and express kind of that vulnerability, that is coming from a place of self-confidence, that I am willing to step into uncomfortable situations because I know it's what's best, for my growth and development.
A caring position. Hey, I care for this work, regardless I'm paid or, so also a position of care, confident, and friendliness and overall output. The whole thing should come out really well. So that kind of a big picture thinking. So it's many things. I'm not sure it's powerless.
Okay. So I love, Marta, I really appreciate your questions and thoughts here. It says, I'm always told not to excuse, my English because if it's a second language. What do you guys kind of think about that? And for anyone who hasn't spoken up or anything like that, definitely chime in. This is kind of open mic here today. But if anybody has some ideas, because maybe you guys have all been told, don't excuse your, the way that you speak English. And maybe it doesn't mean, oh, excuse me, English is my second language. It may be more of like, oh, I might not know this topic as well, or it might be acknowledging the other person's strengths in the situation, acknowledging that in seeking advice is the other part of this power communication. Yeah, go ahead.
When we are speaking in English, I'm talking about me. It's clear that I'm not a native English speaker. So people usually know that I'm Russian and that I'm raised in Rome and all the stuff like that. So I don't ask like excuse me for my English, but I ask for advice, for an advice. For example, I don't know, maybe how I can say it in English, or just help me. It's a funny way to communicate when I have some troubles or something like that.
Yeah,
I think
and
that's such a great idea, because really people want to help. They're, you know, when you put them in a position where you're seeking advice or seeking help from someone, it really, like, people like that. They like to be, you know, oh, is this the right word in English? Or, you know, just kind of asking questions. Did I say that? You know, was that right? Or things like that. That can really be a connecting thing in communication with native speakers.
yeah,
May
and
I add
I
something,
think,
Annie?
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Hey, I
Oh
love
yeah.
this because uh, uh, honestly, this is something that something that I kind of overcome maybe a couple months ago, or maybe
Okay.
even just last year or whatnot. So oftentimes, whenever we trying to communicate where it's not ourselves, or we trying to pretend that we know it all,
Yeah.
or even trying to pretend like we're American, I have an American accent or whatnot. I think it's the hardest thing for me to actually communicate because I lose my train of thoughts whenever I'm communicating because I'm trying to say the perfect thing. When reality is just communicating it in a way where it's my, in a way where I'm basically, just expressing myself, and people would could tell that if I don't know anything or I don't if I'm not familiar with a subject. Oftentimes people would give you, or even the best example I could give you is when my coworker tells me, I was like, why are you trying to speak an American accent when your native language is awesome? And it's like, well, because obviously I want to be able to communicate well. Well, and here's what she said to me, and it kind of rocked me and kind of gave me aha moments. It's like, your accent is actually, it's part of who you are. You're never gonna change that, and so, just embrace that, vulnerability to where what, people doesn't mind giving you advice, or when you seek advice, people doesn't mind, giving you like tips and advice to where it's like, hey, this is kind of how you say it, or this is kind of like the topic, and so something that I kind of overcome, maybe just last year or so, just, embracing of who we are, but that doesn't mean we should never be complacent, but we could always improve. So hopefully that
Mm-hmm.
helps.
I love it. I love it. And really that's, I mean, the Confident Pro Mindset course is all about that. It's trying to help you all get into a place of confidence in who you are, and just allowing you to have that solid sense of self, so that I'm not, it doesn't mean you don't keep working on your pronunciation, your English, and all that kind of stuff, but it's coming from a place of, this is a fun challenge and this is fun and interesting, instead of, I'm missing something, or I'm not whole unless I have this. Because I want you to understand that you are whole and complete right now, and who you are is so critical to, to how you show up in the world. And so as you create that more solid sense of self while speaking English, you're going to show up in such a more authentic, vulnerable way that's true to you. And that's really what people are wanting to connect with, is your true vulnerable self. So it's not about pretending that we're American, it's not a pretending, because it's interesting, because in the book, he talks about how there was this lawyer who was giving an argument, and the jury loved him and loved his side because this lawyer had a stutter. And it was so interesting because the lawyer or the jurors and things like that really responded to this lawyer, because they were like, look at the courage this guy has, despite he obviously is showing up for his client and is willing to put himself in a vulnerable position, even though he has this stutter and he's stammering and he's struggling with the language a little bit, but he's here and he's showing up and he's fighting for his client. And that gained so much respect from the jury. And not that it determined the outcome, but it definitely helped his presentation. Whereas you usually think that a stutter might hurt him, and they'd be like, oh, he doesn't have as much of a command of the English and communication and things. But really it had the opposite effect. They're like, good for him. Look at the courage. Look at the strength. And I was thinking about all of you. I'm like, that really, if we can kind of switch that mentality, because even I was talking to my sister the other day, and he's like, whenever I'm talking to a non-native English speaker, I'm always like fascinated that they learned my language. And I'm so impressed with them. And I can't believe like what it took for them to be able to communicate in my language. There's so much respect there. And if you can kind of have it in your head that that's what native speakers, that's kind of the pronoia, or, kind of thinking that everyone thinks you're amazing and wonderful, that's going to help you show up in English so much better, won't it?
Actually, one comment I can make here is sometimes you, as second language English speakers, you might take it a little, sensitive and take it a little personally when somebody said, "What did you say? Can you?" And the tone of it, or some of them are very nice, and some of them. So I guess we got to be a little bit insensitive to those kinds of
yes.
comments. And then, hey, there is an opportunity to improve and take it, kind of a funny way. And my daughter said, she's a psychologist. She said, I was always thinking, well, I have too much accent. I said, don't worry. Maybe if you're too conscious when you're giving a speech or in a library or somewhere, you can just say, hey, guys, you might notice a very, very slight accent, that kind of a joke. And then people will laugh. And
yeah. Yeah, not taking ourselves too seriously. Yeah, I think that's brilliant. So there's all these communication styles that are just so helpful. And I'm glad we're talking about this and kind of helping you understand that it is not about being perfect. It's not about, showing up saying, I'm the only way for me to be confident in this situation is to pretend like I have it all figured out. The opposite is actually true. And research is really showing that. So such a good conversation. And just a plug for the confidence course. That's what the confidence course is all about. You talk about kind of being insensitive to it. And that's kind of what I'm teaching, is how to be a little bit more insensitive to the comments of other people that might diminish a little bit of that confidence for you. I talk about kind of other people's opinions are a reflection of them, not you. That it's like you really need to put it back in their court. If they're going to have an opinion about the way you speak English, we need to make sure that we don't own that, that's more about them.
Your voice is important and needs to be heard. If you're ready to speak English clearly and with greater confidence, I invite you to start your free 7-day trial at pronunciationpro.com.